Some of the biggest breakthroughs in human history weren't planned. They weren't even predicted. Nope, they were just total accidents. And today, we're going to dive right into the incredible science of these happy mistakes.
I mean, really think about that for a second. We're taught that science is this super precise step-by-step process, right? But what if we've got it all wrong? What if the real game changers, the big leaps forward, actually come from a complete and total surprise?
And, there is absolutely no better place to start this journey than in the world of medicine. This is a field where a few, let's call them clumsy moments in the lab, ended up saving literally hundreds of millions of lives.
So, let's set the scene. It's 1928. We've got a Scottish scientist, Alexander Fleming. Now, you might think the hero of this story is some brilliant new chemical he cooked up. But no, the real hero? A simple, dirty Petri dish that he was this close to just tossing in the trash.
Yeah, that one contaminated dish led him straight to penicillin, the world's very first true antibiotic. We're talking about a substance that comes from mold and just wipes out harmful bacteria. And listen, it's almost impossible to overstate how huge this was. Before penicillin, a little cut, a simple infection, that could easily be a death sentence.
So how did this whole thing go down? Well, Fleming was studying staph bacteria. He heads off on vacation, and when he gets back, he finds one of his dishes is contaminated with fungus. Ugh, right? But he noticed something weird. Around that blob of mold, there was this perfect, clear circle where the bacteria were just gone. Now, most scientists would have just chucked it out. But Fleming? He was curious. He had to investigate.
And the result of that one moment of curiosity? Well, penicillin has saved an estimated 200 million lives. I mean, probably even more than that. It completely revolutionized medicine. It even helps change the course of World War II by treating wounded soldiers. All of that from a single contaminated dish.
Okay, let's rewind a bit. Our next story takes us back a few decades, all the way to 1895. And this time, the accident wasn't some kind of moldy mess. Nope, it was a strange, almost spooky glow in a pitch-black room.
So you've got this physicist, Wilhelm Röntgen, and he's messing around with something called cathode rays. He's in his darkened lab, and suddenly he sees a fluorescent screen on a bench across the room just start to glow. But here's the crazy part. There was nothing connecting them. No wires, no nothing. He realized in that moment that he'd stumbled onto some kind of unknown, invisible rays. So what does he do to test these brand new rays? He asks his wife, Anna, to put her hand in their path. And the image he captured, it was absolutely astonishing. It was her hand, but he could see the bones, and her wedding ring looked like it was just floating there, this ghostly shape. Think about that. It was the very first time anyone had ever seen inside a living human body without taking a knife to it.
All right, let's step out of the high-tech medical lab and right into our own homes. Because it turns out, some of the most common things we use literally every single day were also born from complete and total accidents. Okay, picture this. It's World War II. An engineer named Percy Spencer is working on these things called magnetrons. They're basically the tubes that generate microwaves for radar systems, super important stuff for the war effort. One day, he's just standing near one of these active units, and he notices something odd, something happening in his pocket.
So, what was it? He reaches into his pocket, and the chocolate bar he was saving for later, it's a completely gooey mess. Now, most of us would be annoyed, right? Snack ruined. But Percy? He wasn't scared, he wasn't annoyed, he was intrigued. He knew the radar wasn't giving off heat, so something else had to be going on.
And he didn't just write it down in a logbook. No, he started experimenting. First, he gets some popcorn kernels and points the magnetron at them. Bam! They start popping all over the lab. Next up, an egg, which famously exploded right in a colleague's face. So yeah, from a melted chocolate bar and a few messy, kinda hilarious experiments, the microwave oven was born. All right, for our next one, let's talk about a material that, for the longest time, was just a complete disaster. I'm talking about natural rubber. This stuff was a mess. It got all sticky and melted in the heat, and then it would freeze and crack in the cold. It was, for all intents and purposes, completely useless. So along comes this inventor, Charles Goodyear, and he is obsessed with fixing this problem. And let me tell you, the difference his discovery made was like night and day. He took this useless gunk and transformed it into the very foundation for tires, shoes, you name it, countless essential parts we still use today. So how did he crack the code?
Well, after years and years of getting it wrong, one day he just accidentally spills this mixture of rubber and sulfur onto a hot stove. But instead of turning into a sticky puddle, it charred, kind of like leather. It suddenly became tough, durable, and waterproof. He'd done it. He'd accidentally discovered vulcanization.
So, let's recap. We've got mold, weird glowing screens, melted chocolate, burnt rubber. On the surface, it really just seems like a string of incredible dumb luck, right? But if you look closer, there's a pattern here, something that tells you these weren't just accidents.
And this is the real secret sauce, the common thread connecting all these stories. Fleming, Rontgen, Spencer, Goodyear, every single one of them ran into something weird, an anomaly. But here's the key. They didn't just ignore it. They stopped, they paid attention, and they asked that single most powerful question in all of science. Wait a second, why did that happen?
Because really, when you stop and think about it, our world is just full of accidents. Dirty dishes get thrown out every single day. Chocolate bars melt. On their own, those little events are meaningless. They don't change a thing.
The accident isn't the discovery. It's just the spark. It's the prepared, curious mind that sees that spark and fans it into a massive flame. It is the decision to look at something weird and investigate it. That's what truly changes the world. And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? We are all surrounded by these little glitches, these strange, unexpected moments every single day. And, most of the time, we just brush them off and move on. But what if? What if one of them is trying to tell you something important? So the real question is, what happy accident are you going to notice today?